So, Mr. Carlisle, I understand that you have a new movie that's out last week called Sinister. Is that correct?
I think that's correct. I think that's what we ended up calling it.
Okay, but I'm sure that you're tired of talking about Sinister on this website over and over and over again. So
on this website, I'm tired of talking about Sinister, period. It's I love it. I'm proud of it. It's awesome. But I've kind of spent the last month talking about it, and I kind of would like to talk about something else.
Well, how about Pokemon?
Ooh, I love Pokemon.
Since you are the only person...
Is there Pokemon to talk about?
Yeah, I believe so. You tell me. There's a Pokemon Black and White 2 just came out, was it last Sunday on the Nintendo DS? And this is two separate games, right? This Pokemon Black 2 and Pokemon White 2, right?
In the way that there's always two games that come out in the first release of a game, and that they're essentially the same game with slightly different things, just different enough that hardcores like me buy both of them, despite the fact that they're the exact same game. It's like, but this one has a city, and that one has forest, and they're so different. Oh, and this one has like 8 different Pokemon that I can't catch here, even though it's later in the game, and I'm not going to use those Pokemon anyway because it suck, but I got to get the game. So yeah,
when you get both of them, do you also have 2 DSs? Do you play them with one hand and just look back and forth real fast? Okay, over here, at the same time? I mean, do you play like one and then the other? Do you play them both at the same time? I mean,
dude, I don't have 2 DSs. I have 3 DSs.
Oh,
okay, I've got the DS, the really good Wi-Fi connection. I got the DS XL for, long-term playing. I've got the DS. I got the old because these two are, I have a DSi and a DS XL, and then I have an old DS, which can actually still plug in the old games so that I can trade from the old games. I have 3 DSs, and it is, I would be mildly embarrassed if I hadn't actually done something interesting with my life. Let's put it that way. So, yes, no, it's, I don't play them both at the same time. I'm not that guy, but I will play through, like I'm playing through Black 2 right now. I haven't even unpacked White 2 yet, but I'm going to, once I beat and play through Black 2 for a while, then I'll pop in White 2, start over again, and blow through that, and then start swapping stuff back and forth.
Well, what's the, what exactly is this? This is a sequel to the Pokemon White and Pokemon Black, or is it like an add-on expansion, or is it a full-on sequel? I don't know much about. The last Pokemon game that I played was like Red on the Game Boy. So it's been a while since I've gotten into any one of these Pokemon games. What exactly is going on in Pokemon Black and White 2?
Okay, well, here's the thing. It's kind of weird because they've never done this before. Every game is effectively a sequel, and how it used to work was they would put out the dueling versions of the game, like Red and Blue as it came out here in the States, or Blue and Green as it came out in Japan. And then they would make a third version, which is, hey, we came up with some advancements to the game, and we've tweaked the gameplay a little bit, or added in a new Pokemon, or there would always be some weird thing, and that would be their version of a sequel. Black and White 2 is the first actual sequel. It is a straight-up sequel to Black and White. It takes place in the exact same region. You start off with the exact same starters as you did, but you start off in a new town, and it's a brand-new plot that takes you on a different route through the new region, Unova.
So does that story then take place concurrently with the story of Black and White, or is it... It's afterwards. It's
afterwards.
It takes
place. It takes place 2 years later. You deal with a lot of the same people that you dealt with in the first one, but now it's 2 years later. One of your buddies who used to travel around and show up at different intervals in the story, Charon, he now is a gym leader, and several of the other gym leaders are still around. Several of them have been replaced. The big baddie and the 2 big baddies in the original show back up in different ways. Now they're at war with one another. Gestus and N used to be on the same team. Gestus had raised N. Now they're at war with one another and feuding. And so the story is essentially a new one, and you're going through the region in different ways. The biggest change, the biggest difference between this and Pokemon White and Black is that the region you're going through and the towns you're in has access to Pokemon from throughout the Pokedex. and it has more Pokemon accessible than any other Pokemon game ever has in the first half of the story. Because how a Pokemon game is set up is there's two halves. There's the storyline half, where you're playing through, you go through, you beat the 8 gym leaders, you get all your badges, you end up battling Team whatever, because there's a different team that is doing something in each game.
It hasn't been Team Rocket this entire time? They've been replaced by other bad guys?
Oh, no, Team Rocket's just in the first one. There's Team Rocket, there's Team Plasma, which is what's in Black and White. There's Team Magma. No, there's a different team in every single generation.
Okay.
So you do battle with them, and then once you've beaten them, you run off to beat the Final Four, and then once you beat the Final Four, you beat whoever the current world champion is, and then, ta-da, you are the champion of that region. And then at that point, then it opens up the second half of the game, which is the sandbox version of the game. There's some storyline aspects in it, depending on which generation it is. For example, in Black and White, there were 7 members of Team Plasma that got away, and you have to track them down and find them. And you get, a different training machine for each one you find. And then once you find all of them, you get and I forget what the prize was, but you got something for finding all of them. And then there's, certain people who show up, and you just get to move around and train up and become awesome and battle the Final Four again. And apparently in this one, I have not gotten this far yet, but in this one, there's now a world championship, like a super hard, super tough version of the Final Four in this game. So,
and that's kind of the end game. That's like after you've gotten through most of the story, then you're going to be grinding up to essentially, try to take on the stuff that is essentially impossible until you have super evolved Pokemon that are very, very experienced and very powerful and stuff like that. Stuff that would be ludicrous in the single player game to kind of keep the players going through the late game. Is that correct?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, keep in mind that for Pokemon, there's a whole added aspect of the meta in which if you play against other people or play online, you're playing with Pokemon that at really high levels. And so there's gameplay to keep it interesting and keep you able to grind these things up without it being a ridiculous grind.
Okay.
So you do want to be able to get Pokemon up all the way up to be level 100 Pokemon so you can battle against your friends' level 100 Pokemon.
Okay.
So they have storyline aspects to allow you to do that.
Okay. Well, see, now back to what you were saying before. I was under the impression that we'd already had a kind of ridiculous. There were already a ridiculous amount of Pokemon out there, but apparently this is. I'm just looking at the Wikipedia article for this. It says there's 300 unique creatures to get in this game? Like
there is, except that this game doesn't introduce new Pokemon. They're all the same 649 Pokemon that currently exist. But you have access to 300 of them. Each game, like in Black and White, in the first half of the game, you only had access to the 100 new Pokemon that were introduced in Black and White. I think it was 100. And there's 150 in the first one. They added 100 in Gold and Silver, and they add between 100 and 150 each time. And currently in 5th generation, we have 649 total. And this one, you have access to 300, of which you have access to virtually all of the ones that were introduced in Black and White, and then a lot of them, especially really popular ones from previous generations. And it's kind of insane. There's several Pokemon that are considered to be amongst the very best Pokemon they've ever put out that you can catch very early in this game, like Riolu. Riolu turns into Lucario and was considered one of the best fighting types. He's a fighting steel type, and you can catch him in the first hour or two of gameplay.
Okay.
And so I caught him very early, and he's been on my team, which is great because he was one of those that you could only get, I think, later game in Gen 4. And
does that mean that this is easier then? Like by front loading those Pokemon in the front, does it make the game? I mean, by starting you out with such powerful creatures, does that mean that you're able to kind of tear through the game a little bit easier than you were in the past?
Well, you'd think. But the thing is that the Pokemon that are valued, like Lucario's really valued at high-end play. At low-end play, he's not any more amazing than anything else.
Okay.
So, no, the thing that makes this different and somewhat easier is every generation they put out for a while, they have some kind of special get this Pokemon early. Mm-hmm. You get a special Pokemon early, and they have ways of going about it. In Black and White, there was the Victory Pokemon Victini, which it unlocked. If you got in within the first month, you could download a special pass called the Liberty Pass, which opened up a small mini section of the game, and in that mini section of the game, you could catch Victini. And he was a total pain in the ass, but he was totally worth it. And in this, it's just if you buy it in the first month, you can download Genesect. And Genesect is a really badass Pokemon. I played with him last gen because it was discovered that there was a server that you could call to download the 3 unavailable Pokemon. One of the things they do occasionally is they come up with these Pokemon, and they're like, hey, we've got new Pokemon for the game, and you can't have them. The only way you're going to get them is if you come to special events, and really, we only throw special events in Japan, and occasionally months later, we'll throw them in the United States. And you have to do something special, like show up at a GameStop within a certain 3-week period, and you have to be paying attention for that. Well, someone's like, oh, hey, we found the servers to download level 5 versions of the 3 impossible to get Pokemon, and so I was like, hell yeah, I'm getting those. So I downloaded those 3 Pokemon, and one of them was Genesect. And so I played with Genesect and Keldeo as on my team for Black and White during one of my iterations of play, and Genesect is just disgusting. He's a steel bug type, and he's really gross and awesome and cool as all hell. And you can download him right away. And as people have referred to, it's like playing on easy mode. Okay. So I've had to keep him on the background of my roster because he has really powerful attacks right from the get-go. He's a really great combination, and he just goes in and whoops the crap out of things. You just have to keep him away from fire.
Cheat code Pokemon is what he is. I mean, you want to turn that off to get any kind of enjoyment out of the game whatsoever.
To a certain degree, yeah. I mean, he's not perfect against everyone, but he's really good and really strong. And if you train him up early, he will kick the crap out of everything. And because he's a traded Pokemon, because you downloaded him, he gets one and a half times the normal experience. So he levels up faster.
Well, I tell you what, I was also looking on the Wikipedia article that said that one of the big new mechanics here is something called Pokéstar Studios.
Oh, yes.
What is this?
Okay, so here's the other thing about Pokemon. There's, it's made for kids. Mm-hmm. As much as the mechanics and the math of Pokemon is absurdly complicated and hard to understand for even, the smartest individuals. Because really the math system that governs Pokemon and Pokemon training, if you spend any time Googling this or spend any time in the Pokemon Reddit on Reddit, you will discover that it is just absurd. It is just mathematically complicated to a level that is just hard to wrap your mind around. But the gameplay is designed so that anyone from age 5 can pick up the game and just start playing. So you can understand what's going on, you can understand the story, and you can, move your way around. But to truly understand it, you have to be, 30 or older and have a huge brain to just soak up and absorb all the dozens of different factors that go into breeding and raising the perfect Pokemon
you make it sound like you've got to be like Matt Damon at Good Will Hunting in order to play Pokemon at a championship level.
The guys who do that's exactly who they are. It is absurd. I mean, seriously, it is some hardcore stuff. But But so what they do is in every game they add something silly and stupid for the kids, and you get little rewards out of it. And this one, it's Pokéstar Studios, and Pokéstar Studios is a big movie studio where they film Pokemon movies, and you show up and you can rent Pokemon or use your own Pokemon, and then you make a film and you make a couple of choices, a couple of lines of dialogue, and based on how it goes and what you do, you then premiere your movie, and you watch the audience react to it, and then it goes on to, they track the box office of that movie, and you can supposedly get certain kind of rewards doing it. And it was one of those things that most of the generations require you to walk through it at least once in order to get something that you need to continue the game, and here you can't. You have to go and make a Pokéstar movie, and it was one of the most obnoxious 20 minutes of the gameplay in this, where it's like, all right, come on, let's just get this done so that I can get on and go and whoop more ass and get some experience and not have to sit around and do this.
Well, I mean, obviously, did you feel like you're being forced into this? You're like, God damn it, I'm playing this to get away from fucking movies, and you're forcing me to make Pokemon movies? Damn it!
It was a little. There was a little meta silliness to that I have to admit, where I was kind of like, really? I'm sitting down and making a movie with my Pokemon. Yes, that is okay. Yeah, that's happening. And so I got done with it as soon as humanly possible and got the fuck out of Pokéstar Studios. But I mean,
go ahead.
It's a neat little mechanic that some people may really enjoy. I just wasn't particularly into it.
Okay. So I was looking at this, and I was kind of curious, just to maybe get your opinion on why you think that this wasn't a 3DS game. Because as I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, but to date there hasn't been a 3DS Pokemon game, and it seemed like this would be a great opportunity to kind of throw this incredibly popular franchise on there to maybe drive some more system sales for Nintendo. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, Game Freak wants to sell a lot of games, not sell a lot of Nintendos.
Oh, okay.
It really is one of those things where Game Freak tries to make their games as accessible as possible for as long as possible, and they've always done that. They want to make sure they have the most available systems using their games, and that's all that's happening here. And the thing is a lot of people don't like the 3DS. I don't know. Like I said, I have three DSs, but I don't have a 3DS. And I have no desire to get one. The only reason I might ever get one would be to pick up a new Pokemon game, but I would probably wait on that because it would, especially with something like Pokemon Black and White 2. I don't know if anyone anticipated this to be big. That's the question. The reason I say this is when Pokemon Black and White 2 came out, I showed up at Walmart at midnight for the release of Black and White. And there were 30 other people there in the game section at midnight on a Saturday night waiting for this to come out. This time, I walked into my Walmart at midnight. Nobody was there. The section was all but closed up, and they hadn't even heard that there was a new game coming out. And they went back, and they spent half an hour looking in the back trying to find it. They said, we haven't gotten it yet. And they have a little sticker on the window saying it came out. But, so they're like, hey, we called this place. Go over this one. And they've got it there. And I go over there. They hadn't heard of it, and they had no idea it was coming out. And so I finally end up at a third Walmart, and they found their small box of them, but they didn't have big boxes of them like they did at Black and White. They only had, a small box with, I think, like 4 copies of each. And then the next day, everybody was complaining that it was sold out everywhere, that they'd gone early in the morning, and they'd already sold out the few copies they'd gotten. So I don't know if anyone and I don't know why they wouldn't anticipate a Pokemon title to be a big hit, but I guess because it was a sequel, perhaps maybe it didn't sell as well in Japan because people are like, oh, it's not a new generation, it's just a remix, and we don't care about a remix, so let's not push it. I think perhaps maybe they're working on, their 6th gen, and their 6th gen will have the 3DS. Okay. But that's just a guess. But it was very strange to see the reaction to this one, to go from, standing at a Walmart with 30 people to get a copy of Black and White, to being the only guy in town running around to all the Walmarts at 1 a.m. trying to find a single copy.
Yeah, that seems a little bizarre. I mean, say what you will about I haven't played, like I said, I haven't played a Pokemon in years, but as I understand it, this is like Dragon Warrior, is one of those franchises where it's just everybody buys the new one, or if you're a fan of it, you always just get the new one whenever it comes out. And it seems strange that this one would have any less popularity than the last one, especially if it's building on. I mean, as I understand, Black and White was, at least as I understand it, fairly successful. So it seems strange that this one would be less so. I don't know.
No, it was a crazy best-selling game. It did amazingly well. So yeah, no, that it really caught me off guard. So I have no idea what the deal was with that. But I'm assuming that was probably the case, that they didn't anticipate a sequel to be able to sell handheld units. Okay. And that they were. I think this had more to do with experimenting to see if they could pull this off. That if people would go out and buy a sequel rather than a new gen. Okay.
Well, that makes a certain amount of sense. Well, before we go into ratings territory, I always ask, is there anything that we haven't touched on that you feel people need to know about this?
Not really. I mean, it's Pokemon. It's kind of like, it's kind of like Call of Duty. You know exactly what you're getting into, and you know if it's your thing or not. It's really good. It's, there's nothing really much to say about it except that it's a Pokemon game in all the best ways. And the only part of it I didn't particularly enjoy was Pokéstar Studios, which I hear other people have. So
okay. Well, what do you give it?
I give it full price. I mean, it is definitely a full price game. If you're a Pokemon fan, there's no reason you shouldn't be playing this right now. It is everything you want from a Pokemon game, and the fact that it's a remix is actually pretty great because if you're the type of person like me who's played through each generation more than once, it's really nice to play through a generation and get to play it in a manner with a lot of the other Pokemon that changes the dynamic.
Okay, cool. Well, hey, thanks for coming on. I don't think any of the rest of us would have had nearly as much to say about Pokemon if we tried to review this ourselves. So we'll keep an eye out, and we'll definitely have to have you back when the 3DS, or when I'm sure there inevitably will be a 3DS Pokemon game comes out.
Inevitably, there will be something. Yeah. There will be something Pokemon related eventually. That
besides that stupid Pokedex 3D thing, it doesn't do anything.
Well, they put out that stuff all the time because keep in mind that Pokemon and Harry Potter are the Star Wars of a generation. That they're these people that have grown up with it their whole lives. And that this, you and I are older guys. We remember a world without Pokemon, and there are kids that do not, and that they've grown up with Pokemon being a principal part of their pop culture. And so being able to have something coming out every 6 or so months that has the word Pokemon on it is kind of important. And they don't put out a new generation but every few years. So they've got to have something. And there's... And most of them are crap. I actually, the only things I end up playing are the actual straight up Pokemon games. Things like Pokemon Ranger or Pokemon Snap or any number of the Pokemon Pinball, any number of the bizarre Pokemon things that have come up over time. It doesn't surprise me that the Pokedex is just a waste.
At this point, I think that the word Pokemon no longer has any meaning in my mind. Like, we've used it so much in this review that I don't even know what that is anymore.
Well, you know that Pokemon is an American word, right?
It's no.
Yeah. Over in Japan, the game is called Pocket Monsters. And over here in the States, Pocket Monsters was trademarked by the company that made the old toy in the 80s, Monster in My Pocket. And so they couldn't use Pocket Monsters. And so some genius said, hey, everyone knows it's a Japanese game. Let's make it sound Japanese and call it Pokemon. So over here, it's Pokemon, but Pokemon is not. Nobody says Pokemon in Japan.
Crazy.
So there you go.